Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me to discuss ways to engage in healthy conflict and how we become more intimate in the process. My name is Shelby Baker, and I'm happy that you're here with me today. Gandhi said, "Every fight is on some level a fight between differing angles of vision, illuminating the same truth. Disagreement is inevitable. Engaging in conflict in a constructive manner can bring us closer by providing an opportunity to gain insight and deeper understanding of one another." I've studied and researched mediation and conflict resolution. I use these skills and ideas in my own life to when conflict arises in my marriage and with my 3 teenagers. The keys to resolving conflict and creating healthy, intimate relationships are active listening, clear communication, and empathy. There are a variety of ways to manage and resolve conflict. I'd like to discuss 3 positive ways to participate that can potentially enhance intimacy: active listening, clear communication, and empathy. To begin, let's talk about active listening. Active listening is a skill that we can continue to work on throughout our lives. Hearing is passive. It is the physiological process of sound hitting our eardrums. Listening is a complex skill made up of several different elements. Mindfulness is being engaged in the moment. It requires focus and presence. Receiving messages requires minimizing distractions and keeping our thoughts on task. Selecting and organizing material requires us to attend to information based on many different factors. It requires us to minimize our own personal interests and expectations and focus on what's being communicated to us. After we are able to select and organize the information being communicated to us, it requires us to interpret that communication, remaining open to other perspectives, not focusing on simply our own. Dr. John Gottman, the founder of the Gottman Relationship Institute, has done extensive research on couples in conflict. His findings indicate only 31% of conflicts are solvable, and specific skills are required to smooth that process. Specifically, gentleness and the ability to accept influence from other perspectives. In addition to being an active listener, we must learn to communicate clearly. Communication is simply the transfer of information. The ability to express yourself is another important skill that can continue to be worked on throughout your life. Our views and feelings are equally valuable. We must understand that everyone's opinion, ideas, and feelings are legitimate and important. Devaluing feelings and ideas creates resentment and long-term becomes detrimental to our relationships. Another important aspect in communication under conflict is learning to identify what the real issue in conflict is. Oftentimes we find ourselves in conflict around issues that are really the heart of the issue. Understanding requires arriving at understanding requires patience. Different people take in information at different speeds and in many different ways. Cooperation and collaboration is the avenue to understanding. Dr. Robert Krauss of Columbia University wrote a paper titled "Communication and Conflict." He writes, "In communication, the common foe is misunderstanding, and in collaborating to vanquish this enemy, the parties to a conflict may be taking the first step toward reducing their differences." Learning to agree to disagree is another important aspect. There is always more than one way to view a situation. Nothing is ever right or wrong. Thus far, we've talked about active listening and clear communication and how these acquired skills can be improved upon throughout our lifetime. Now let's talk about empathy. Empathy is the ability or power to feel and understand another situation or feelings. It denotes deep emotional awareness. We can work toward understanding another person's story through respect by confirming their worth and treating them as equals. Compassion is not necessarily agreeing with someone else, but acknowledging their perspective, demonstrating a desire to understand them, and listening for their feelings. Dr. Stone, Patton, and Heen of the Harvard Negotiation Project wrote in their second edition book, Difficult Conversation, feelings disguise themselves as emotions when we are better able to handle. Often they masquerade as a single emotion. An example of this is loneliness can be an emotion, covering for a harder to identify emotion, such as desolation,